For invocation by Councilman Lloyd Matthews.
Shall we pray? Our God, we give thanks for this day. We give thanks for the health that you give each one of us. We give thanks for the ability that you give all the people in this community to make it a thriving community. We'd ask now that you be with us as we deliberate issues that has pros and cons. We have people that look at one side and people at the other, and let us make good decisions that's in the best interest of all of our citizens. And now I'd ask you to bless this meeting again as we deliberate. These things I ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Roll call, Ms. Kirby.
Councilman Branham.
Here.
Councilman Smith.
Here.
Councilwoman Abshir.
Here.
Councilman Matthews.
Here.
Councilwoman Pearson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh.
Here.
And Mayor DeGaris.
Here.
7 present.
Thank you. Disclosure of interest. Any member of the City Council may disclose any possible conflict of interest dealing with either any item on the printed agenda or with any matter discussed at a previous meeting. Seeing none. Citizens' input. Each person in the audience may take this opportunity to address the City Council on any matter which is not on the printed agenda.
Hi.
Need your name and address, please, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is Aaron Darnell. I live at 1423 West Vine, just up the street from the mayor here. I have some information for you. First of all, I'm here on behalf of myself and the Breathe Easy Poplar Bluff Coalition. We're a group of citizens, people that live and work in Poplar Bluff, that we are concerned about the health of Poplar Bluff. We have about 800 individual supporters and about 38 businesses who have openly support us. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make Poplar Bluff healthier by making it so there's no smoking in public indoor places. We've been working in the community for about 3 years. We met with different organizations and clubs. We've done outreach events in the community. We've been a part of the Merchant Showcase, Ag Expos, all of those things. We actually just took part in the Chamber's Media Appreciation Day, which was a lot of fun. We got to meet all the media people and thank them. So what I have for you is a proposed ordinance that we would like you to review. And I actually have a summary sheet also, so you can look over that while we're talking. And I have 10 of each, so I think that's enough for everybody, correct? Can I just give them to you and pass them around, or do I need to?
Okay.
That would be fine.
So what this is this is similar language that has been used throughout Missouri. There are actually 24 cities in Missouri that have already taken these steps. The most recent cities that have done this are Excelsior Springs, Sedalia, Missouri, Washington, Missouri, who's actually one of our sister cities. They actually partnered with us on the Sudafed issue. So this is, like I said, this is similar language to what we've done before. So what we're about is we're about health. I know this is kind of a hot topic, but we're about health. This is for the health. This is for my health. This is why I'm here, for my health, for the health of my family, for the health of my friends, for the people that I work with. Actually, just last year, I lost my grandfather to esophageal cancer because he smoked, which was totally his choice. That was his call. But my grandmother is actually now suffering from side effects from secondhand smoke for all of those years. She has congestive heart failure, other issues like that, all kinds of stomach issues that are all related to that. So this is a serious issue. The U.S. Surgeon General actually stated in his last report regarding smoke, or secondhand smoke, that there are no safe levels. There's not a little bit that's safe. There's not a lot that's super dangerous. It's all dangerous. It's all bad. There's an instant chemical reaction whenever you breathe in secondhand smoke. So I wanted to give that to you so you can review that. There's actually a few other of our coalition members and just people in the community that we've talked to that want to express their concern about this too. Dr. Stanley Zomack is actually here to speak also.
My name's Stan Jomek. I'm a doctor at Poplar Bluff Regional Medical Center and live here on 903 Kinzer. It's a great privilege to be a doctor in this community because the people here are very proud of their community and they stand up for it, and it's a growing community. And I'm proud to be part of it. And I think as a council, you guys are very good. I've been reading about your decisions in the paper, and it's a real pleasure to meet you guys in person. I operate on a lot of patients that suffer from cigarette smoking. Actually, heart attacks are the #1 result of cigarette smoking that hurts people, and we do quite a lot of bypass surgery on patients with heart attacks. Matter of fact, we got some recognition from some societies around the country about our doing emergency bypass surgery on heart attack victims. It's high risk, but all these patients are smokers, and we do a fair amount of lung cancer surgery also at the hospital, and most of the lung cancer is due to smoking. Not all of it, but most of it. And I have to say, my specialty is very directed towards the ravages of smoking, and we try to save people with the consequences of smoking, but we can't save everybody. Unfortunately, we lose some people, and it's very disappointing. And but we save most, and that's happy. But I think preventative. The key thing is to try to prevent this problem for our future generations and young people. I think it's very important to give them the best chance possible of living a life without having to have a bypass surgery at 45 or 50 years old, which we see not infrequently. And we also do lung cancer surgery for people in their 40s and 50s also. It's just remarkable. And I think if we help the future generations in Poplar Bluff by making this ordinance, it would be a proud moment for everybody, and I would support it. And I appreciate the chance to speak before you and meet you in person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rhonda Burden. I live at 626 County Road 314, Poplar Bluff. I'm here tonight because this is very important to me. It's very close to my heart. My grandson, you may have heard of him. He's become quite infamous around here. His name is Carson, and he has a page called Pray for Baby Carson. Carson was born December the 30th of 2012. Up until his birth, he was a perfectly healthy baby. His mother eats healthy. She does everything she can to take care of herself. She's a good mom. She's an excellent wife. And Carson was born, and because she had a false negative lab test, there's a bacteria that she carries in her body that causes group B strep. And she had a false negative to that test. So Carson, during birth, was exposed to a very vicious, vigorous bacteria, which made him a very sick little boy. And I won't go through the whole thing because I could go on and on and on. We'd be here for a long time. But I will tell you, he was very sick. And it is a miracle that he's with us today, but he is, and I'm happy to tell you that. Through much prayer and excellent doctors at Children's Hospital, he spent the first 3 months of his life up there. And it was a struggle every day. We did not know what to expect. We knew what we hoped for. But he has very sick lungs, and we are limited at where we can take him because of that. We have to be careful for germs. He cannot be around cigarette smoke at all whatsoever. And they're confined to home a lot, but when they do get out, we want to know that where we go, it's going to be okay. We want to have that peace of mind that we can go to Walmart and walk outside the doors and know, you know, we're not going to expose him to something that's going to hurt him or put him back in the NICU in Children's Hospital. I know restaurants is a big part of this. There's not a lot to do in this area for us to get out and be together as a family. As it is now, we can't go out as a family. One of us has to stay home with Carson. We would like to go out, but it's just not possible right now. And I'm hoping that through tonight, I'm hoping that can happen for us. Not only restaurants, but even in the, I work in a medical facility, and I see some of the results of some of the secondhand smoke. I see lots of things coming through our emergency room that doesn't have to be. We could stop some of this. And I believe influence is powerful. I believe if our children see people out and about smoking, that's going to impact our children. That's going to make a difference. I think everything we do, everywhere we go, the things we read, the things we watch, even seeing someone walk around with a cigarette is going to influence our children. I hope that you make a decision to pass this ordinance. I fully support it, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Felicity Brady, 2366 Willowbrook Lane in Poplar Bluff. I was asked tonight to share with you a little bit about my experience 7 years ago. I went through treatment for breast cancer, as many of you know. In my search to attempt to try to save my life, I traveled to 4 different locations in this country, as far east as Boston and as far south as Florida. I met with the chief radiation oncologist at Harvard in Boston, Massachusetts. I was attempting to try to determine what was the best course of treatment for me with regard to radiation. I had 5 surgeries that year, chemotherapy all that summer, and then until November the 30th, I had radiation every day. I had an option to undergo additional surgery or have radiation. When I was trying to determine what I was going to do, I went to Harvard and met with this man, chief radiation oncologist at Harvard University. He told me that I could undergo the radiation and avoid the additional surgery that I was facing. But if I did, I was to stay out of cigarette smoke if at all possible. Don't smoke, try not to be around secondhand smoke. And the reason why was because if I were exposed to cigarette smoke, it would increase my chances of developing a sarcoma in my lungs because they had been radiated. So some of those members of the Smoke-Free Coalition, some members know this story, know my experience with the breast cancer and with the advice that I had received from this gentleman, and asked that I share that with you tonight. When I'm provided the opportunity to engage in social events, if I can, I do take my business elsewhere. I can go to Jonesboro and enjoy smoke-free environments. I can go to Memphis, Tennessee and enjoy smoke-free environments. But when I'm in Poplar Bluff, I can't. I have to be careful the places I go. I have to be careful of the restaurants in which I eat and the stores that I walk into. So that's just a little bit of my story, and I'd be willing to share more if anyone had any questions or anything. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, more coming. I can't see back here.
I'm Rick McGath. I'm a family practice physician. I have a dry mouth, so bear with me. At any rate, I practice 2588 North Westwood. I don't live in the city of Poplar Bluff, but I was born right across the street in Poplar Bluff Hospital. Unfortunately, for the first 8 years of my life, I was in the hospital every year with pneumonia. And that was because when I was at home at night, my mom and dad smoked continuously, and I had to breathe secondhand smoke. I didn't have much choice about that. Ultimately, my parents finally decided that they were tired of taking me to the hospital and paying hospital bills. So my dad quit smoking, my mom quit smoking. I was never in the hospital again. So, you know, that was extensive exposure to smoke, and I realize we're talking about secondhand smoke, which more recently has been referred to as environmental tobacco smoke. And many of you, I think, don't realize that there are 50,000 people a year who don't smoke that have heart disease. There are 5,000 people a year who die of lung cancer who've never smoked a cigarette in their life. And it's a type of lung cancer that's associated with smoking. There are 700 harmful chemicals in the smoke of a cigarette. 70 of those cause cancer, and 20 of those cause breast cancer in animals. So that's why she's concerned about avoiding smoke. We have children in our office every day who have sinus infections, ear infections. We treat them with antibiotics. A week later, they're better. 4 weeks later, they're back in the office with a sinus infection. I have patients with asthma go out to eat, sit in the restaurant, and have an asthma attack. It seems minuscule. It seems that there's almost no smoke in there. But in fact, there's a lot of smoke. There are 700 chemicals in every cigarette. When you walk into the fast food stores, you don't have to deal with smoke. But in the restaurants, the quick shops, how many people have walked in to buy a soda at the service station and walked out smelling like a cigarette, smell like they've been in a bar? I mean, it's really terrible. The council has shown that they're very progressive, very up-to-date. They took the lead in eliminating the sale of Sudafed without a prescription, and they're to be commended for that effort, because I know that was a difficult thing to do. It inconvenienced a lot of people, and this also will inconvenience a lot of people. But I can tell you that I really don't believe anybody that smokes in the smoking sections would hurt a child or give a woman breast cancer or give someone a heart attack. But believe me, that is a risk, and we are endangering our children, and we're particularly endangering the employees that work all night long in that environment. So I would really encourage you to strongly consider this. I know it's not going to be an easy issue. It's going to be difficult. There's going to be opposition. And I know that because Dr. Gene Hansborough and I went to a meeting at Nybert Clinic of the executive committee in the mid-1990s. In that meeting, we said, we can't have people sitting in our waiting room at Nybert Clinic smoking cigarettes when we're trying to keep people for heart attacks. There were many doctors who said, oh my gosh, people will go elsewhere. We'll lose money. Can you believe it? We couldn't believe it either. We fought, we were cussed at, we were yelled at by the smokers, and ultimately we stopped smoking at Nybert Clinic. Then the next battle came, and he and I fought tooth and nail until smoking was prohibited in doctor's hospital and on the grounds. Well, one would think that that would give the opposition an advantage. Oddly enough, within 6 months, smoking was stopped at Lucy Lee Hospital. So, once again, I realize this is a very difficult issue. It's going to be hard for you, but for our children, for our adults, for our future, we have to be progressive, just the way we were with Sudafed, and we have to be at the forefront of health in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other members that want to speak on this topic? Not, we'll take this all under advisement. And
I need to, I just been waving my hand, I wanted to wait till they got done, but I've got a little something to add to theirs, all right?
Okay. Please step up and give us your name and address, please.
My name is Jim Schultz. I live at 911 Barron Road.
And I'm living proof to what these people have said. Look at me. I'm sweating, I can't breathe, my chest hurts. Doc, I need to come see you real quick. Where are you? Okay, here he is. I do need to. I started last night, I had real bad chest pains. And
Sir?
the old stubborn man, and they said, no, I'm gonna wait till tomorrow. One of these days, I'm not gonna have that chance. I smoked for 30 years, hard smoking. I've got a brochure right here in my hand. I tried everything came down the road, help me save somebody's life and somebody else's life from the smoke from it. I will give you this number. I will help you get there and try it. It's been quite successful. It sounds crazy, but it worked. I haven't smoked in 9 years. I smoked 3 packs a day for 30 years. Look at me now. So it's, give it a try. I'll help. I got one more thing. Between here and the printing place over there, office supply there, I lost my notes, so I'm going to leave this up here, and we'll discuss this. This is my senior citizens, and we'll discuss it on the meeting on the first week, all right?
Yes, sir.
It's just a bunch of questions that we have, all right?
Okay.
But you guys keep on, don't you give up, all right? I mean, I'm down now, and I'm just lucky every day. I get up, I pray, thank you for it, and it's really bad. I have to stop and rest between here and the street, and I did it all myself. I'm not complaining, don't get me wrong. But there is hope. You're gonna save this person's life, you're gonna quit smoking. You're gonna save somebody else's life that's not smoking and breathing that smoke. So it's a double whammy. I'll be right here at the end. Anybody needs, I had a bunch of these and I'm down to my last one. But talk to me, all right? I'll be glad to. If you need one of these.
Okay, is there any other topics anyone would like to talk about?
Good evening. My name is Greg West. I live at 1184 County Road 476, Poplar Bluff. I have a business at Mills Iron and Supply at 1919 Southwest Wood Boulevard. I'd like to thank the council for this opportunity to speak tonight. And the reason I'm here is for something that, if I understand it correctly, is on your agenda. I was reading Sunday's paper, and it came across an amendment to proceedings at city meetings. Now, I didn't know what that meant, but that's what as it's printed in the paper. I did find out later that what that intent is to change the amount of time citizens are allowed to speak at the council. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's on the agenda. We'll have some time to discuss that when that item comes up.
Would you
If
prefer I
that's okay.
speak then?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It'll be fine. Thank you. Anyone else has any items to discuss that's not on the printed agenda? Okay, we'll move on to have the consent agenda. Does anyone in the city, member of the city council, have any part of the consent agenda that they wish to discuss separately? Now I'd entertain a motion and second to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Have roll call, Ms. Kirby.
Councilwoman Pearson,
Yes.
Councilwoman Abshir,
Yes.
Councilman Branham,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilman Matthews.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh.
Yes.
Mayor DeGaris.
Yes.
7 yes votes.
Thank you. Items passed. Next item will be workshop item. Item A, the city council review a proposed resolution authorizing the mayor to submit a grant application for a community development block grant to extend the railroad spur in the industrial park.
Felicity Brady, 3019 Fair Street. I'm the director with the Regional Planning Commission. We have been in discussion with the Chamber of Commerce and Mid-Continent Nail Corporation to attempt to obtain grant funding from the state of Missouri to extend the existing rail spur behind the Mid-Continent Nail building by about 610 feet, 615 feet. It would allow Mid-Continent Nail to expand their operations and to potentially add 50 jobs in the next 2 years. The estimated project cost is around $500,000, and that is the amount of the grant that we would be eligible to request if the Department of Economic Development determines that we would be eligible to request that amount of money for this particular project. As you know, with community development block grants in the state of Missouri, a city or a county has to sponsor the application. So in this particular instance, it would be the city of Poplar Bluff applying for the $500,000 in order to extend that rail spur. As I mentioned earlier, we are right now in discussion, we being the Planning Commission and the Chamber, in discussion with the Community Development Block Grant Office in Jefferson City to try to make sure that this project is eligible. That determination has not been made yet, but if it is determined that the project is eligible and we can send in an application, then the project does need to be expedited because we have a private industry involved and they're on a time frame. So that's the reason why I asked to have this item added to the agenda and to be workshopped tonight. This particular resolution that's in your packet would authorize the mayor to sign the application forms to send the application in once it's completed. So it doesn't necessarily commit you to anything at this point. It just authorizes the mayor to sign the applications, the application forms.
There's 50 additional jobs associated with
50
this?
additional full-time jobs with health benefits provided
And Joe, did you
within
say
24 months. 50 within
jobs?
2 years.
If no further discussion, I would make a motion, we move this to the voting session to be held on August the 5th.
August 5th.
Second that.
Motion second. Roll call, Ms. Kirby.
Councilwoman Abshir?
Yes.
Councilman Branham?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Matthews?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pearson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh?
Yes.
Mayor DeGaris?
Yes.
7 yes votes.
Thank you. Item will be passed to the voting session August the 5th. Item B, the City Council will review bids received for demolition and asbestos removal relative to the flood buyout program.
We have 4 bids, is that correct, Dennis? 4 bids, you've got them in your packets. This is for a property on Kingsland, on East Marion, and West Maud. And the 4 bids, again, this is asbestos removal and demolition. Low bidder was Allison Construction on the project, and these are projects that were in the flood buyout program. We've completed all necessary steps, and this is just to get the asbestos and the structures removed. Amount $17,000 from the low bidder.
If no discussion, I would make a motion that we move this to the voting session to be held on August the 5th.
Second.
Motion second. Roll call, Ms. Kirby.
Councilman Branham?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Matthews?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pearson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Abshir?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh?
Yes.
And Mayor DeGaris?
Yes.
7 yes votes.
Thank you. That item is passed to the voting session. Item C, the City Council will discuss a request from the Chamber of Commerce regarding the curb appeal program.
Try to do this without falling over. Steve Halter with the Chamber of Commerce. Mayor and councilmen and women, thank you for allowing me to have the time to talk about an important issue to us. But before I start that, I do want to thank the mayor and city manager for what I thought was an excellent letter to the editor in response to the Post-Dispatch article. Probably shouldn't do it at this point, but I did anyway, so you can strike that for the record if you have to. But it was excellent job, excellent job. I want to talk about curb appeal program that we started at the Chamber, and I think you should all have something in your packet. Send it to Pam, a lot of different information in there. I just want to give a brief overview of the program, but before I do that, I know there's some people, and I'm not going to turn around and try to point them out for fear that I might fall over, but I know Randy Persons is back there somewhere, and Greg West, and several other folks who have helped with this program. And I just want to start off by saying I'm really proud of our business community for stepping up and really taking ownership in areas that they don't even really own. All for the betterment of the community. This program, as you all know, part of the mission of the Chamber is economic development and tourism. A couple of the main things that we try to
to work on. And, you know, obviously our area, there's a lot of different site selectors and business prospects looking at our area right now with all the positive things we have going on and all the progress we're making. We all also know that MoDOT has their challenges financially. We've never been a community to sit back and wait for anyone to take care of what we consider our own, and even outside of our area, if it's for the better of our community. And having said all that, MoDOT just really isn't in a position to stay on top of all their different right-of-ways with weeds and grass growing and trash and cigarette butts and everything else that can come along with having people in our area regularly. So the business community through this program has really stepped up, and I applaud. There's a list is way too long to mention them all, but we've identified several areas that are actually MoDOT right-of-way that are lined up along the main business corridor in Poplar Bluff, as you all know, Business Highway 67. And mainly focused on the medians and took several different areas along Business 67 and just asked different businesses to step up and to weed it, spray it, sweep up the areas around it, whatever it takes to keep it looking good. And I know Greg West himself went out and spent a lot of time and money mowing and picking up trash and everything on that large area south of town out in front of his business, although that's all MoDOT's right away. MoDOT's in partners with us on this. They've been to our task force meetings. They've helped out where they can. They've rearranged some things so where they can get some their sweepers in, to where they can get some of the areas cleaned up a little bit better. So they're part of it, as well as the Poplar Bluff Police Department, the City Street Department, and Jeremy Grable has been awesome, and I think he's here somewhere. I don't want to turn around, but he's done a great job of stepping up in areas that really aren't necessarily his responsibility. Code enforcement stepped up. The newspaper's done a great job covering. You may have seen a couple of front page articles. And we're just really trying to get everyone to keep Poplar Bluff looking good at all times, so when we have people come through here, whether they're visitors or business prospects, that they're impressed by our city. And it just gives us all a better sense of morale, and we feel proud about our area. So what I'm asking, if you've seen in your packet, there's some signs that we've kind of mocked up. We've went along with what MoDOT suggested and what Bill Bach from Municipal Utilities suggested or mandated, as far as, you know, hanging signs where there's certain sign heights. I think 7 feet is what it's supposed to be. We've went with a consistent look, a professional look. We've got a sign company in the town that'll be the only one that produces them, and the only thing different in each sign would say the business name. These would all be obviously businesses that are sponsoring those areas or maintaining those areas would be the only ones allowed to have it. They're not mandatory. If they want to purchase those signs, they would have to follow the same format that everyone else does. I don't know that everyone would want a sign, but there will be some businesses that would appreciate if they're going to spend the time and money maintaining these areas to have a little recognition out of it. So what I'm asking, my understanding is those signs would possibly be outside of maybe an ordinance, a signing ordinance, and I'm asking that you guys would consider approving to have those signs, allowing us to put those signs up.
And that's exactly correct. There's an ordinance that says no sign will be erected on any utility pole inside the city of Poplar Bluff. Ordinance goes way back when there used to be those guys who get out of the truck and put on a pair of hooks and climb a pole. That doesn't happen very often anymore, although Bill reminded me it does still happen. These will just be on light poles. They won't be on any primary. We've got plenty of light poles up and down 67 and 53 to make this happen, but it does, as we were talking and Bill had discussed it with me and Steve, it is, an ordinance would have to be waived in order for this to happen. And I would just suggest it be waived in this particular instance for these type signs on light poles only and not on primary.
And there may be 3 signs, or maybe 10 or 12 at the most, so it's not like we're going to have one every 3 feet or anything. And they'll all be consistent look, they'll look a lot like, if you see in your packet, a lot like the sign that we did for the 50-mile stretch for Highway 67 that's just north of town.
And both Steve and I have discussed with the utility manager, and he doesn't have a problem with it either, as long as it's not on primary or wooden posts.
That's no different, Mr. Mayor, than MoDOT signs on their right of way. Kind of gives, as you go by and when you see the highway clean, you know that group.
That's right.
The
The blue
drug court, I
signs.
noticed today, had one
Adopt
up
a
in Wayne
highway.
County that actually takes care of a 3-mile section. It gives them, you know who's taking care of a piece of right away.
It also kind of helps hold them accountable, and they all will understand that if they're not maintaining that property, then the sign will come down, and we'll make sure of that.
You know, I'd like to commend Steve Halter on this issue. About a year ago, maybe longer, I'm not sure, Steve asked me about this. He said, just go out and look by the old water tower there where people stop. You won't believe the cigarette butts and trash that was there. I said, well, I think I checked with Doug, and I said, Steve, it's MoDOT's property. But Steve didn't take that for an answer. He took it and run with it. So I want to commend you, Steve, on
Wow,
the
there's a
job. Well
lot of
done
people,
there.
I appreciate that, but there's a lot of business people that really helped make it happen.
Yeah, but the leadership came from you, and I want to give you
thank
public
you.
credit for what you did there.
Appreciate that.
And again, without Steve, this wouldn't have happened, folks. Because I know he's worked long and hard on this to get this to happen. So I think it's an excellent piece of work, and hopefully we can get it resolved, or we can get it completed.
Steve mentioned Greg West out in South Poplar Bluff. I actually drove by and saw Greg out there working very hard, so I'm thankful for business owners like him and everyone that's volunteered to work on this program. I think it's great.
Agree, it's a good thing, and it's good to give them recognition to the people that worked on it, and so everybody can see what it is, and maybe generate some pride on some of the city streets to get the same
That's
thing
right.
done.
Yeah, we started on 67. We'd like to see kind of expanded, but we're not going to turn anyone away. If they want to adopt a highway, even if it's not on 67, we'll be glad to a portion of the highway, regardless where it's at.
I have a couple of questions. Is there a timeline? Do these maintain that section for a year, 2 years, 5 years? Is there any kind of a contract or timeline?
We don't have a contracted timeline. We'd hope they just keep on keeping on, but we'll probably, we know that some of them will probably maybe change ownership or change their mind or whatever. But we'll review it every year. You know, it's most of the time it's not an issue when it's not when the rain's not coming and the sun's not shining. The weeds aren't growing then either. So, but usually in that spring and summer and even into the fall time frame is what we're really focusing on. But every spring we'll review it and make sure that everyone's interested in kind of re-upping and keeping their
And will
area.
you monitor it? Will it run through the chamber's office?
We will monitor
Not the
it.
city's office?
We will monitor
Okay.
it.
And my second question is, you know the flag signs we put up, many times they got tattered or torn or knocked down. Many times like big semis come through and they'll knock these signs. Will someone watch to make sure that the sign stays in good
Yes.
order? Because it looks tacky when you got a
Sure.
nice sign out there flopping
Yes.
and somebody needs to maintain it.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, anyone that feels this isn't necessary, all they have to do is just drive up when you stop at a stoplight. Just look.
That's where it's the worst.
Doesn't take but a minute, and you
Right.
can see that it's something that we really need in this community.
Mr. Mayor, do we need an amendment to amend the ordinance?
I believe all needs a motion to approve this as a waiver for this one purpose.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Roll call, Ms. Kirby.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Matthews?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pearson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Abshir?
Yes.
Councilman Branham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh?
Yes.
And Mayor DeGaris?
Yes.
We have 7 yes votes.
Thank you. It's approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Give him a second to speed back to your chair. The City Council will review a request from the Police Department to amend Chapter 625 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Poplar Bluff relative to pawnbrokers.
Chief Danny Whiteley. Before I have Captain Sutton or from Cape Girardeau come up here and talk about the Leads Online thing, at 7 a.m., October 24th last year, we responded to a call on Wood Street. It's a law enforcement officer's worst nightmare. A 5-year-old little girl had been kidnapped from her home while sleeping. But with immediate help of the FBI, ATF, the United States Marshal Service, Butler County Sheriff's Department, Missouri State Highway Patrol, and our officers, and the grace of God, we had her safely back before dark that night. Assistant U.S. Attorney Larry Farrell and Abby Kreitz out of Cape Girardeau was so helpful in this, and his staff And today, 46-year-old Jeffrey Dean Shelton, who I wish the death penalty was applied in this case, but it didn't under the federal system, was sentenced to 120 years in federal prison, of which he must serve 85%. For all purposes, that's where he's going to be the rest of his natural life. And we'll have a child predator that's not out in the public anymore. Just want to touch on that, but this time I asked Captain Sutton. He's been working on this with the officer from Cape Girardeau. I'm going to turn this over to him at this time.
For the last several years, we've been trying to address a problem we've had with the pawnbrokers ordinance. It's outdated, and some of the reporting is difficult to filter through when we search for stolen property or suspected thieves. We've been looking at different online databases and different companies, and Leads Online seems to be the best fit for what we're looking for. And the Cape Girardeau ordinance is probably the best ordinance that we've found to implement that. So to talk about their ordinance, I'd like to introduce Corporal Joey Hahn from Cape.
Council, Mayor, thanks for having me. Chief, also, thanks for having me. Corporal Joey Hahn, I'm with the Special Operations Division, Cape Girardeau Police Department. And don't ask me what that means, because any given day it's something different. I've touched base with Captain Sutton on this program a few times. Reason being is because Poplar Bluff Police Department has always helped us out, and we've tried to help them out as well. I know we've had a lot of cases that have went this way, and they've had some cases that have gone up our way. So we've always had a really good working relationship. And anytime we find a tool that really works in law enforcement, we try to promote it. And that's kind of what this is about. I'm not a real tech savvy guy here, so if you guys kind of follow through with me for a second. This is going to be just kind of an informational PowerPoint to help you guys kind of understand what we're doing here.
Move that mic too.
Yeah. Do you need the lights down?
Is that about as good as it gets, I guess? Can everybody see that okay? Okay. Leads Online is basically a online database that documents any kind of activity involving a pawn shop. I see you guys also adapted the Sudafed ordinance, which is very progressive. This also has another feature that they call it Cooks and Crooks, which kind of follows any kind of ingredients with methamphetamine. We don't actually subscribe to that service, but it's out there as an option. But for today, basically, I'll just kind of talk to you guys about the basic Leads Online. As you can see, one of the things is that they have over 2,200 law enforcement agencies that currently prescribe to this service, and they collect over 350,000 business transactions per day, which is pretty impressive. Captain, is that the page?
It's probably got to be to the front of the projector.
That's fine. Let me go back through and we skip the page here. Everybody look away. I don't want to give anything away. This is a spoiler alert. Okay. This is basically a screenshot that we captured. This is automated NCIC hits, which National Crime Information Center, NCIC. Basically record serial numbers of merchandise that's reported as stolen through, if you guys are familiar with the term mules, I'm not sure if you are or not, but basically any information that's entered into mules regarding stolen property through a serial number or VIN number will go through NCIC. Leads Online will actually give detectives or even patrol officers the ability to log onto their system, and within a minute or two, they'll have an indication if there's any NCIC hits of national or property that was stolen from this jurisdiction here nationally to any pawn shops. That screenshot there actually showed you don't need to go back, Dave, that's right. That actually showed a TV that was stolen from our jurisdiction that was pawned in Knoxville, Tennessee. So, and it was one of our first hits. Another feature that they have that has actually proved really beneficial is the out-of-jurisdiction reporting. In the past 60 days, Cape Girardeau residents have pawned over 70 items beyond our corporate city limits. With Leads Online, you can see outside your jurisdiction, whether that be St. Louis, Memphis, or New York City, and you can view all that in one report. Well, that's important to us because that's kind of a red flag. If you have a resident of Poplar, Bluff, and he's leaving on a weekly basis to pawn items in Memphis or Springfield or St. Louis, you kind of got to ask why he's doing that. You know, why is he not taking these things locally? Reason being is because burglars, thieves, robbers realize that they want to move property outside of the area it's stolen from as soon as possible. So when that happens, that's kind of a red flag that can open up a case you might not even be aware of yet. Go ahead, Captain. Repeated transactions, this is another screenshot that we pulled. This basically is just showing if you enter in the category of iPhones, which is something that's pawned and stolen very frequently now. You can enter in the items between 2 and 200, whatever the option may be, whatever you're looking for, and you can customize your date range. And it will show you if you have anybody in particular who's pawning multiple items of the same thing. Once again, this is important because it's going to show you if you have any kind of white-collar thefts. Say you got a guy that works at a AT&T store that may have unloaded a truck and stole 200 iPhones. You might go out to a pawn shop 100 miles from here and sell 200 iPhones. This is going to pop up and show you if something like that's happening. Or if you have a burglar that stole, you know, $1,000 worth of Craftsman tools, you can type in Craftsman tools, and that will pop up also showing that somebody's pawning multiple items of the same thing. Captain, whenever you're ready. This is a screenshot from an actual ticket from Springfield PD. This is something they showed me when I was setting the system up, and depending on how you want to adapt this ordinance, you can kind of customize what you want your screenshot to be. With us, if it's a certain amount of jewelry or precious metals, we'll actually request that they either get a photograph of the vehicle, if it's pawning items like scrap goods, or if it's bringing in jewelry, we'll ask that they get a Missouri ID or a legal ID card and get a shot of that. That's helpful for an officer sitting at his desk to be able to look up and say, okay, this is our suspect right here. Here's a photograph and here's current information on them. So depending on how you want to have your businesses cooperate with that, you can basically fill that information in any way you want. The reported function, I didn't even really understand what this was until we got in depth with the program quite a bit. This is something that it's actually good PR work for any of your officers. It's kind of proactive for you. If we have a new business that pops up in town, or if we have any existing businesses that I think this may benefit, I kind of give them some information on this. And this function allows business owners to actually document their own property on their own, at their own leisure, through this system. So say, for instance, you have a business school that's getting ready to open up shop here, and they have 75 laptops or computer monitors that they have inside their business. You can ask them to itemize each one of those items and then enter the serial numbers or whatever information they would enter. If there's ever a burglary or a robbery, that information is already entered in the database. It's automatically sent over, and any NCIC hits will be automatic from that point. This is just something that we can kind of send out to businesses also, and it's just kind of showing some of the options that they have. One of the neat functions we found was the paper ticket option. A lot of these pawn shops that we dealt with, that we went and touched base with before we adopted this ordinance, were actually using pretty outdated documentation. Some of them had carbon copy forms that they were ordering. Some of them were writing on Rolodex and, you know, had everything kept in triplicate. This gives business owners actually the option of printing out on just the regular computer or whatever printer they may have, printing out tickets and receipts right there. It actually saves quite a bit of time for some business owners. The electric filing is a point of sale software. A lot of the bigger corporations, I think you guys have a GameStop in Hastings, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of those already use a point of sale system where basically someone comes in with 50 video games, they can enter that person's information in, it's cloned for each one of those items, and they can scan it just like they scan a UPC at a register, and it automatically enters that information in. So it actually saves you time from writing down, handwriting anything, putting pen to paper, or anything manually. So the point of sale is a pretty nice little tool to have as far as making things speedy at the register. System security, and this is where my lack of tech savviness kind of comes into play here. The only thing I can tell you is that they are GLBA compliant and that they have the SAS 70 type rating, which when I called their system and asked for them to break that down for guys that don't follow that kind of stuff, they said it's a lot easier for someone to tap into a lot of the actual government databases and steal social security numbers than it is for someone to actually hack the system and to steal information. They have not had any kind of information leaks or any kind of breaches of security of any kind, and they assure us that it's actually meets all of the government standards and above for security information. Some other nice functions that they have with Leads Online, some safe searches where you can enter information. Say, for instance, one thing that we found is our field contacts at night. If you have an officer that, let's say, stops someone walking down the street and they have jersey gloves and a screwdriver in his back pocket, but they haven't committed a crime, well, now they can come in and they can enter that person's information and they can request that person be flagged. Well, 2 weeks down the road, this person might go out and pawn a bunch of items. Leads Online will actually send you an email showing you there was activity on someone that you flagged. So that's something that's been beneficial to us. Person of interest also, that gives us the option of flagging individuals not only through our own agency, but also through assisting agencies like Poplar Bluff would be one where we might say, hey, you guys have a resident who's coming up here and pawning these items on a regular basis, and they could contact us back through Leads Online and actually get the information sent directly to them. The Leads Online support, extensive technical and legal support, I can attest to that. We've contacted them on multiple occasions to ask for explanation on certain things, to see if what we're doing is correct. I actually created a sample business basically just to kind of set things up and to see, you know, if there was any kind of troubleshooting that I could do before any of our businesses actually took this on. And they walked me through everything in 24-hour support, and I never had anybody put me on hold or have an answer or a question that they couldn't answer right on the spot. So I can attest to the fact that they have great tech support. And then actually the businesses that we have online with Leads Online at the same time tell us the same thing, that they've had just great relations with them so far. Just some of our local recent successes since we've had this system in operation. This case was only from about a month ago. One of our detectives flagged, basically like I talked about earlier, 3 different suspects' names who were fired from a construction company because the owner thought they were stealing. Well, a couple weeks passed, and all this information started coming our way where these guys had actually pawned multiple items outside of our jurisdiction, and we recovered literally thousands of dollars in power tools and made the owner of this construction company very satisfied. And I got to be honest with you, this is a case that if we didn't have this resource, would have been dead in the water. We would have had very little information to follow up on. Scott Pierce, I don't know if you recognize that name from the newspapers or KFES, but he was kind of a big name a couple months ago. He was a very prolific residential burglar that we had, and we had a pawn shop owner that was a little bit hesitant to become part of the system. And actually, he had some items that were stolen that we were able to recover in St. Louis through the use of the system, so that kind of showed him that this is something that does in fact work. And oddly enough, he actually found in his past where he had received stolen property from the same suspect that we linked back to a home burglary. So all kind of came full circle, and the business owner actually became a believer of the system. And then another report that we had, which is listed below, was a multi-jurisdictional report where we had DVDs and Blu-rays stolen by the hundreds and pawned at Hastings. The big thing about this one was, it was one where, once we found these items, we actually were able to find that some of them came from Jackson, and some of them came from Walmarts throughout, Missouri. We actually linked in several different agencies and helped them recover property off this one case and off this one hit from Leads Online. It is just a copy of a pawn slip, and this is just some of the information that you receive. This one was kind of unique because of the fact that the owner of the business listed, 90% silver coins pre-1964. And that's just kind of something that we threw in there to illustrate that when you're getting involved with this program, if you help the business owners to believe in it and show them how it benefits law enforcement, they'll go the extra mile for you at that point, and they'll actually give you the tools that you need to solve the case. And that's, we commended this business owner afterwards for, really being thorough and helping us to identify that property. Unconventional uses, this is stuff that just kind of popped up after we subscribed to the program. And one of the biggest benefits that we found was that this created an entirely new database for us. One of the things that I do in my job title is fugitive apprehension. And, someone may not forward their mail, and they may not have a water bill in their name, or they may be completely off the grid, basically, and using their girlfriend's cell phone account and everything else. But believe it or not, they pawn, and when they do, they use their ID and they give their real information. So we actually use that in our fugitive apprehension, and it's now one of the first tools that I go to when I'm trying to locate someone. Multiple pawns of several items. This is something, again, that the businesses love, especially Walmart, AT&T, some of the singular stores. We've turned them on to retail theft, internal retail theft, before they even knew what was going on. I've come to them before and said, this person is pawning this many items. Does this sound right? And they say, no, he's a midnight stock boy. And let me check. And they get back and say, guess what? That stuff's out of our inventory. So this has happened on several occasions, and these businesses absolutely love the fact that we're able to contact them about a crime before they even know what happened. Keeping tab on known offenders, that's another thing that we do, where we will flag a current suspect, and we create a general list of offenders, just kind of a rolling list where every 60 days or 90 days or whatever else, I'll go through and I'll find people that have been arrested for burglaries, robberies, stealing, whatever the case may be, enter them back into the system, and it's generating cases that we would have never had without this system. Whenever we were drafting this up, this is just some of the sample ordinances that we used. I believe I gave Captain Sutton a copy of our ordinance, and it works well for us. And some of the ordinances that we used that were pretty comparable to ours, Paducah, Kentucky has a great one, Springfield, Aurora, Illinois. And one thing that I found is whenever I was contacting these other agencies that were using Leads Online, they all told me the same story, which is kind of what I'm telling you. It's a great tool. It's something that once you get it, you kind of wonder how you investigated some of these thefts and burglaries without it. But it's one of those where I also encourage, like when I talk to Captain Sutton, you got to make it your own. You got to see what businesses you have and how it may benefit you and your community, and you just got to kind of tweak it however it may fit into your own community. But like I said, with ours, we kind of adapted a little bit from each one of those other ordinances, and it's worked quite well so far. And we actually have the support even of the businesses that were a little bit vocal against it to begin with. Are there any questions or concerns from anyone?
So you had businesses that they don't actually access the database, they just get the information to you all?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they are only able to enter their information, and they don't enter it directly to us, they enter it to Leads Online, and then we're
Okay.
able to monitor all that activity through Leads Online. And one of the reasons is, and I found this out while I was kind of researching what was going to work for us, Pawn Shop A on this side of town sometimes doesn't like Pawn Shop B on that side of town, and they definitely don't want to see what's happening at the other one, and don't want the other one to see what's happening at their shop. So that was one of their biggest concerns, was they didn't want, this shop to know what they were taking in and what they were selling.
Well, and what about like the beauty school? You've got, they can access this to enter information on?
Yes, and that's through that report it function, and it's
Okay.
limited only to you creating your own portal with your own business and then entering that information in basically for documentation purposes only. It doesn't allow them the ability to search anyone else's property.
But you've got your information in there if it ever turns up.
Correct, yes. If that business is ever robbed or has a burglary, we're able to go through and I can actually call them and say, here's a list of all your serial numbers. Tell me which ones are missing. So it's been beneficial. And once again, you guys may wonder why Cape Girardeau took an interest in coming down here and do this. It's really twofold. One, like I said, we have a great working relationship. Your chief went out of the way to help us with things. In fact, I think we woke you up the other night, didn't we, with our armed robber? But I'll say this, the idea of calling a chief and waking him up out of bed and him jumping and actually got our armed robber for us, so I applaud that. You guys have a great department down here, and anything we can do for them, we'll do it. And we always like to encourage that kind of relationship. And then also, the wider that we cast this net, the more it benefits us as well. They're going to be able to look at our pawn shops in Cape. We'll also be able to look at their pawn shops in Poplar Bluff. So, like I said, it kind of works twofold in our benefit.
Well, I appreciate you doing this for us. I read through that ordinance, and it's quite lengthy.
Yeah.
But this, kind of in a nutshell, shares exactly what it is. And if it helped you all, I don't know why it can't help us.
Have you noticed a decrease in your burglaries in your area?
Well, we've had it for less than a year as far as full operation with detectives and personnel actually manning it. And the problem is burglaries and robberies are kind of seasonal. So it's something that we're really going to have to compare the data a couple years down the road. And the other thing is we're kind of operating under the radar. We didn't want a whole lot of publicity to begin with because we didn't want these guys skating off to other jurisdictions to pawn this stuff. We wanted it to be pawned in places where we actually had it monitored at this point. It really depends on what approach that you want to take. But I think it's one of those things that after a while it's going to deter your robberies and your burglaries. Yes.
Are your council meetings televised?
Pardon?
Are your council meetings televised?
They are, but I will say this: our criminal element doesn't really watch the council meetings on TV. So we've got that in our benefit.
And I think we're probably sending everybody to Sykeston to do their pawning now, because
and that's very possible. And once again, there's other agencies that we've discussed this with. I mean, we got a great relationship with Poplar Bluff PD, but anytime I talk to another detective from another city, even if it's off the cuff on us looking for a suspect, I'll throw this out there to it because, like I said, it's been beneficial to us. So,
What's the cost involved?
The city of Cape pays roughly $4,000 a year for the service, but it is a sliding scale, and it's based upon the number of officers that you have serving in your department full time. So it'll be less for Poplar Bluff, I know that, and then also there are certain different packages, and I think, Captain, did you look at those different?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a premium package that gives you full access to everything, and then there's some lesser packages on the way down, and then, like I said, there's also the ability to review all your, they call it cooks and crooks, and the cooks part being methamphetamine. So there's also the ability to subscribe to that service. We personally don't, and I kind of wish that we would, but there's different options involved. But I think we have the premium, and it's around $4,000, and I mean it's paid for itself multiple times already, in my opinion.
And when the businesses sign up, is there a cost to them, or is that
No.
just a service that you provide?
And I should have said that earlier. That was a concern that we addressed. It's only a cost to them in the fact that they're paying taxes to the city. I mean, our department actually fits the entire bill. It's actually free to them, and it actually saved one of our pawn shops some money because they were paying an annual basis for pawn shop software, which once I saw how that operated, this is much more user-friendly and simple. And this actually saves them time, and then they don't have to pay an annual software update for their pawn software. I think the only businesses that actually pay for it are the big corporations like Hastings that use the point of sale. And I think they just pay for basically getting the upgrade to the hardware so that they can scan that. But that's their own choice to do that. And a lot of those corporations have that by policy.
Who provides the training to the businesses?
Well, that was something that we kind of worked out with them. I personally went to every business that was going to be affected by this and walked them through with a laptop or an iPad. And it's simple enough, like I said, when I created my own sample business, just to see, so I could kind of be well-versed when I sat down with them. I was able to enter a sale in a matter of less than a minute. And it's very user-friendly. You can see that most of the items are, drop-down tabs to where you can't mess it up. It's going to tell you whether or not you're entering the right data and the right information. And another feature that it has for them that actually saves some time is the cloning option. If it's somebody who's been in there in the past, a lot of times you can just enter in their first couple initials of the last name and it'll give you the options. You can clone that person in as, a repeated customer. So the training is pretty simple. And then I always put them in contact also with Leads Online and their support services. And most of their follow-up information that they've had to receive after their initial setup has been through Leads Online itself. And the company's been really good at getting back with them and answering their questions, like I said.
Yes, I noticed there on your presentation something about salvage operations.
Yes.
Some city has that.
We have that, yes.
Okay, to me, that would be a big boom because all we have to do is look in the paper and see all the churches that they store their air conditioners that
Correct.
cost them tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
And home and businesses here in town. So, and I know they do a good job here. When you go down, you show your driver's license and this kind of thing.
Mhm.
But this should be a big help to them, shouldn't it?
It should, and once again, any change is going to be met with resistance of some sort. And that's why I brought an iPad down, was I was just showing some of these businesses how you can actually use the iPad to take a picture of the items that are being pawned. And then, you can actually take a picture of the driver's license. And then everything from that point forward is documented already. But that's been very helpful with us because, they'll take a picture sometimes and we'll review it and it'll be an entire spool of copper that, we're wondering, why haven't we seen this stuff in the past? And it's just because we haven't had any way of monitoring it, so. The scrapyard portion of it is very beneficial. I'd hate to see someone just include the pawn shops and then miss out on the scrapyards, because you're right, times are tough. And, people unfortunately are gutting houses and stealing air conditioners and everything else you can think of to make a couple bucks.
More questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good presentation.
Mayor, I would make a motion, we move this to the voting section next meeting.
August the 5th.
Motion second to move this item to the voting session to be held August 5th. Roll call, Ms. Kirby.
Councilman Matthews,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pearson,
Yes.
Councilwoman Abshir,
Yes.
Councilman Branham,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh.
Yes.
And Mayor DeGaris.
Yes.
7 yes votes.
Thank you. That item will pass. Item E, the City Council will discuss a contract for administrative services between the City and Ozark Foothills Regional Planning Commission to administer the Industrial Park Drainage Grant.
Felicity Brady, 3019 Fair Street, Poplar Bluff, Missouri. I didn't attend for this particular item tonight, but I can entertain any questions that you may have. The City of Poplar Bluff applied to the U.S. Department of Commerce for a grant to make drainage improvements in the industrial park. And this is simply a contract to manage that particular grant, administrative services for that EDA-funded grant opportunity.
Typical what Felicity and her organization does for us on these grants.
No questions. Entertain a motion and a second to move this item to the voting session to be held August 5th.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Roll call, Ms. Kirby.
Councilwoman Pearson,
Yes.
Councilwoman Abshir,
Yes.
Councilman Branham,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilman Matthews,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh.
Yes.
And Mayor DeGaris.
Yes.
We have 7 yes votes.
Thank you. That item passes. Item F, the City Council will review a recommendation from the Municipal Utilities Advisory Board regarding the vacation of an easement.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is vacating an easement on the Kmart property that actually extends into the current building. Utilities doesn't have any facilities on the easement. We discussed this at an earlier advisory board and would recommend vacating the easement.
questions, I'd entertain a motion second to move this to the voting session to be held August 5th.
Second.
Motion second. Roll call, Ms. Kirby.
Councilwoman Abshir?
Yes.
Councilman Branham?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Matthews?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pearson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh?
Yes.
And Mayor DeGaris?
Yes.
We have 7 yes votes.
Thank you. Item F passes. Moving on to action required items, bill number 7604. The City Council will take action on an ordinance adopting a change in the Missouri Local Government Employees Retirement System Loggers Benefit Program for covered employees, changing the benefit program to LT-6.
Move for first reading of 7604.
Second.
Motion second for first reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Duncan?
Bill number 7604, an ordinance adopting a change in the Missouri Local Government Employees Retirement System Loggers Benefit Program of covered employees, changing to benefit program L6 in accordance with 70.655 RSMO.
Move for second reading.
Second.
Motion second for second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Duncan?
Bill number 7604, an ordinance adopting a change in the Missouri Local Government Employees Retirement System Loggers Benefit Program of covered employees, changing to benefit program L6 in accordance with 70.655 RSMO.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Motion second for adoption. Any comments? Roll call, Ms. Kirby.
Councilman Branham?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Matthews?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pearson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Abshir?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh?
Yes.
And Mayor DeGaris?
Yes.
We have 7 yes votes.
Thank you. Bill number 7604 passes. Bill number 7605, the City Council will take action on an ordinance amending the Poplar Code of Ordinances, Section 110.100, entitled Procedures at Meetings.
Move for first reading of 7605.
Second.
Have motion second first reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Duncan?
Bill number 7605, an ordinance amending Chapter 100 of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, entitled General Provisions by specifically amending Section 110.100 entitled Procedures at Meetings.
Move for second reading.
Second.
Motion second for second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Mr. Mayor,
Just a minute, sir. We'll ask for comments in just a minute, okay?
my name is Chester Pumphrey. I rise to oppose the Bill 7605.
Okay, we'll ask for comments in just a second.
Say again?
We'll ask for comments for in just a second.
I still don't... It's not time yet.
We'll have comments in just a second,
It's not
okay?
time yet. You're about to vote, are you not?
No.
No.
Second reading. We're doing the second reading. We'll ask for, have you make comments prior to the voting. Okay? Second reading, Mr. Duncan.
Bill number 7605, an ordinance amending Chapter 100 of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, entitled General Provisions by specifically amending Section 110.100 entitled Procedures at Meetings.
Move for adoption, bill number 7605.
Second.
Motion second for adoption. Comments?
No.
Now, if you'd give us your name and address, sir.
My name is Chester Pumphrey. I live at 1119 Spring Street. And I must admit that when I wrote this speech, I had not seen the bill. So as I go along, I'm going to make a minor correction. I have not read Cushing's manual or Jefferson's handbook. But as far back as General Roberts, it has been time honored that when a person is recognized to speak, he has 10 minutes not to be interrupted. The thing you're about to do will not survive a challenge in court. And one of the reasons it won't survive is because it's not clear in the ordinance to the typical high school graduate that this pertains to the public forum. Since the debate on a particular bill is not mentioned, the average high school graduate is going to get the idea that nowhere in here is he ever going to be able to talk longer than 3 minutes. So that, in other words, it is not differentiated between public forum and debate on a particular bill. That's why it won't stand a challenge in court.
One of you, 2 weeks ago, said you profess to welcome citizen input. This thing will kill citizen input. 2 weeks ago, somebody said his door was always open to the public. I've tried that too with little or no success. One of the citizens' problems is that both here and at the meetings of the various advisory boards, much of his time to speak is usurped by frequent interruptions and diversions from his subject. Do you really believe that the 7 little words underlined, an amendment to procedures at city meetings, does that satisfy the legal requirement to notify the people that you intend to nearly disenfranchise them? When Board Mayor Fawn was holding the gravel, it took me about 3 months to get him to acknowledge the right to 10 minutes, which you now want to diminish. I propose a substitute bill. First of all, leave the times as they are, but insert the following, quote, persons anticipating to present a matter before the council are urged to, as early as convenient, communicate their issue and or their concerns to one or more of the following. 1, the council person in their ward. 2, one of the council persons at large. 3, the city manager. 4, the city attorney. 5, the city prosecutor. And last but not least, the city clerk, in order for it to make it, for their issue that is, to make its way onto the agenda, and to facilitate research so as to enable informed discussion after they've made their presentation. End quote. And this evening, I have witnessed I think I've witnessed an example of the reason you came up with this bill. That is, people talking endlessly on and on and on about some issue of theirs. The bill ought to include a reminder to those persons that if they want to be taken seriously by the council, after they've laid out all their thoughts and identified all their little problems and the wishes, if they wish to be taken seriously by the council, they should make some recommendations as to what they should think the council should do about it. I didn't hear them suggest that to you folks this evening, and I don't know still what they think you ought to do. They spent a lot of your time, our time, talking about the situation. I don't disagree with what they said, but how do they think they're going to be taken seriously if they don't make any recommendations? I yield the floor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. West?
Thank you again, Mayor. As before, my name's Greg West. I live at County Road 1184, or 1184 County Road 476, Poplar Bluff. I have a business, Mills Iron and Supply, on the south end of Poplar Bluff at 1919 South Westwood Boulevard. I'd like to thank the council for the opportunity to speak at the appropriate time. And that being said, when I was reading Sunday's paper and I saw the city council agenda, I didn't understand the amendment to procedures at city meetings. Like I said, I did later became aware that that had to do with your initial public speaking at your meetings, and it concerned me because it seemed a little ambiguous to me. I didn't know what it was until I spoke with someone. They explained it to me. Sorry. Just getting used to these. I'm fighting them really hard, but it's winning. I must assume that the council has a reason to change this procedure for what they've had for I don't know how long. I was on the Poplar Bluff R1 school board for approximately, well, for not approximately, but for 9 years. And during that time, we only had 2 times that we had to actually call someone down and say, okay, listen, we've heard what you had to say. We don't need to hear it another 50 times. As Mr. Pumphrey mentioned, tonight there was the example. If I understand your proposed change, the folks in the blue shirts got to speak for approximately 20 minutes, and they would have been totally cut down to 10, and anyone else that would have wanted to speak would have been 10. Am I understanding that properly? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, just as on the R1 school board, we have the ability to stop someone. The mayor has that ability now to, if someone's going on, carrying on past their time limit, he can stop them without this change 7605. I had the last 4 meetings at my disposal that I checked because, like I say, I must assume there's some reason for this change. On the last 4 meetings, not including this one, the average citizen input time was 7.5 minutes, with the longest time being 16, and tonight was 21. On 7-1 it was 3 minutes, on 6-17 it was 16 minutes, and that did not include a 9-minute talk from Bobby Summers because he was invited by Mr. Bagby. On 6-3 there was no public input, on 5-20 there was 11 minutes. So, you know, that being said, I don't understand why the need for the change. I went to Ms. Kirby today to request a sunshine request for, and I'll read it to you. I'd like to know how many meetings ran late due to citizen input and how much time citizen input took up at each meeting, because from what I'm seeing, the last 4 meetings, 7.5 minutes isn't too bad. So I don't guess I understand why there needs to be a change for that. Councilman Matthews, Councilwoman Abashir, y'all have served on this council for a long time and done a great job for our city, and I appreciate that. You've been here longer than anyone to my knowledge on the council. Have you run into problems that the council meetings run excessively late many times because of citizens' input?
Yes, in years past we have, but not so much the last few years. But I've been in some council meetings that last till 11 o'clock.
Well, it seems to me that we're trying to fix something that's not broken, if it's been years past. Apologize. I need to learn to write better. Like I say, there had to be a reason for some change. I had my wife help me do some research with local cities, approximately our size. We contacted Farmington, Jackson, Salem, Sykeston, and Springfield, and we did get a hold of a live person there. Generally it was the city clerk. And in Jackson, they have no published policy, no time limit, and no prior cards you fill out. The same thing in Sykeston. In Farmington, we got 2 different answers there. We contacted the city clerk, and I contacted the assistant city clerk, Alicia, this afternoon, and she said, no, we don't have a time limit. She said, but you do have to fill out a sheet. I said, well, could you fax me a copy of the sheet? She said, sure, but there's a 3-minute limit on it. So I'm not sure if Farmington knows.
It's in their
Huh?
code, too. It's in their code also.
Okay, they told us they had nothing published until they faxed me that sheet. Salem, Missouri has a 5-minute. Springfield, which is a much larger municipality than we have, has a 5-minute, but it can be altered. And that's the information we had, that we spoke to people directly. So I guess I find it ironic that, you know, our great nation just celebrated its 237th birthday from freedom from an oppressive government. And one of our greatest freedoms is our First Amendment, the right to speak. And freedom of speech being limited, I guess I have to wonder about it, because I went to City Clerk Kirby and made a sunshine request for previous council minutes of how they were, like I say, extended by citizens' input. And of course, it takes time to get that back. So that being said, with the information I've given you on your past 4 meetings, averaging 7.5 minutes a meeting, without changing anything, because you have the ability to stop excessive speaking now through the mayor, I would ask the council to table this matter until additional facts are garnered, because I feel that it is a restriction of some of our rights and freedom of speech. I'd entertain any questions. Thank you.
I just point out, Greg, that I did, after we talked today, contact Chris Hahn with the school district, and they require a 48-hour notice if you're going to have citizens input. Also contacted Devin Stevenson with Three Rivers. They require a 14-day notice if you're going to have citizens input. So, it's something that maybe hasn't been that much in the past. We have 8 cities that we contacted to do 3-minute, 11 cities that we contacted to do 5-minute. Most of these have forms also. 1 city, Hazelwood, was 15 minutes, and 3 cities that we contacted with no limits. I don't know what no limits means. In some cases, they don't have citizens input. It winds up being, this meeting is a business meeting of the city council. It's not a public hearing necessarily. But the council has chose to make sure that we do have a place for citizen input if something would come up. Just makes it a lot easier for them to be familiar with the items that we're going to listen to prior to the meeting if they know what's coming up at it. And a lot of times, I find myself in a strange position agreeing with Mr. Pumphrey that there can be meaningful conversation if that occurs.
I appreciate that, but, Councilwoman Abashir, there hasn't been an issue with it. I guess I find it strange that, in my opinion, you're trying to fix something that's not broken. And
we've had people who have actually turned that podium around and spoke to the public of the TV cameras. There has been issues with it. It's not a place for a public forum or political speeches. It's a place for the council to conduct business, and that's why when you find these other places are doing the same thing, a lot of times people want to make political statements about freedom of rights, and there are places for that. Is the business meeting of the city council one of those? I guess we think it is. We would like people to be more efficient when they do that, to where we could get on with the business of the city. And in trying to limit it to 3 minutes or 5 minutes or no limit, whatever the council chooses, that's all this is. And this is not, from a staff standpoint, it makes absolutely no difference to us. I'm paid, these people make $1 a year. I'm here for as long as they want me here, I can assure you. But it just is, it seems to be a more efficient way. I know we've contacted Missouri Municipal League, and they agree that most cities wind up doing something that limits citizens' input, because it is a business meeting of the city council. It's not a public hearing.
I understand what you're saying, Mr. Bagby, but like I say, you already have the authority, you already have the power. If somebody wants to pick this podium up and turn around and be disrespectful to the council, I would think that the mayor should immediately stop them, okay? You already have that power. I appreciate your time. I just suggested this be tabled for additional discussion. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, one of my thoughts on this as well is whenever they come to the citizens input portion and we as the council have not been notified of what they would like to address, nor has all the other citizens in the town been notified of what they'd like to address. We're not saying that the folks cannot come and address our council. We're just asking for it to be in an orderly fashion so that they give either the mayor, the information prior to our meeting started, so we can pass it amongst ourselves before we go into the formal meeting, or that you contact the city clerk, get on the agenda, publish it in the paper, and then everyone knows what they're coming to talk about. So we're not stopping them from talking, we are making it a more orderly fashion. In addition to that, then it gives us time to get background. It helps us, but it mostly helps the citizens, because when someone comes up here to talk, if that had not been published in the paper and only Mr. Pumphrey came and spoke tonight, Greg Wiss would not know to be here. So I feel like it gives more to our citizens that they, and the only thing we're limiting the 3 minutes is the citizens' input that's not on the agenda. There is not a limit to anything that's on the agenda.
And the 3 minutes or 5 minutes that the council decides on, whatever we decide, or 15 minutes or an hour and a half, whatever the council decides, any of those can be waived by the council. I mean, if they're not providing enough information or don't feel like we've been providing enough information to respond, or at least the council by a simple vote can waive the 3 minute, 5 minute rule,
But
whatever.
like the Breathe Easy folks had contacted us a couple of times, but yet never submitted anything to be on the agenda. They could have had a lot more time to talk if they'd been on the agenda.
Sure.
And as it was, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people that spoke, and then Greg joined in that bunch. But they really did speak. I had done 19 minutes. He said 21. Each one of those people took 2 to 3 minutes apiece. Only one took 6 minutes. So there's a lot of time that passes. 3 minutes is still a long time if you're standing there just talking and no conversation, no feedback.
I'm Jack Russian, live on 2830 Carrie Ann Circle. And just for clarification, how hard is it for a citizen to petition for an item to be put on the agenda?
It's easy.
Is it? How do they go about that? Because I think there's two concerns that a lot of citizens have. First of all, there's a lot of people out there that don't know about the changes you're wanting to make, because, you know, basically it was in the paper, wasn't clear, and you have some people that keep their finger on the pulse of things that have, you know, looked and researched it out. So if there's an avenue, or if there's a method by which a citizen can bring, and without much impairment, get something on an agenda, then I think that addresses a lot of the issue. But I think there's not a problem with asking for people to provide information in advance about what you're going to say. But I too have a concern about the time limit, because if there's a concern that comes up that the council hasn't addressed yet, and the public person feels it needs to be, and they bring the information to you, and some of it has data that may be in depth. You know, when Dr. McGath gave his discussion during the Breathe Ease coalition, he exceeded 3 minutes. And I thought his discussion was informative, and I thought it was good. And I would like to encourage someone like that to come up and not worry about exceeding the 3 minutes. So that's where I stand on the issue. But if there's a method by which somebody can get something on the agenda where that mutes the time limit, then I think that needs to be made aware to public members so that they have that understanding, because that would mute some of this problem. But it's one issue to ask for data, which I think is totally appropriate, and another issue to squelch on time, because I think that could be an issue. That's my input. Thank you very much.
Well, from an agenda standpoint, if I may, Mr. Mayor, it takes the mayor or 2 councilmen to place something on the agenda. I think we have that correct in our website now. Generally, you can contact the city clerk. She will contact the mayor. If there's a problem with it, you'll be called back. But generally, anybody that wants anything on the agenda. Tonight, if we entertain the ordinance that was presented to us by the Smoke-Free Coalition folks, if we would entertain that, there would be a whole new section. It would be an agenda item. They would have as much time as they felt was necessary to address that at that point. During the public hearing, if they would have come up, they could have either had the first gentleman that spoke or Dr. McGath just give a one-time deal, and then if it gets to an agenda item, at that point, the council would take as long as they felt necessary to address those issues. Everybody could speak at that point. It's not a citizen's input. It winds up being council business at that point.
Might add, Mr. Bagby mentioned it. It's been mentioned to me that the time limit instead of 3 is proposed in the ordinance that we're talking about be moved to 5, and still would be 10 minutes per group. but that could just by polling the council, at the discretion of the mayor, I could extend that. And like tonight with the Smoke-Free Coalition, when there are so many people and concerns come up, I'm sure that would, because the 10 minutes, a lot of times I let people talk longer than that. Not me though, Steve. Don't get me talking longer than that. Okay. So,
Mr. Mayor, I would like to say I was here when Ms. Abshire, when we had meetings, it did last till 11 o'clock at times. And you sit back and you think, and I thought a long time about this, a lot of time this week. And Mr. Lawson, when he was here, he gave me some advice. Because we had one gentleman that would come practically every meeting for several months on end and would talk for 20, 30 minutes. But his advice at that time, and I'll try to word it as he did, when a person shows up here, what to us seems like the smallest problem in the world might be the biggest problem that they've ever had to deal with coming to see us. And when he said that, and I thought back about what he had said, and then I went out and my survey's an impromptu survey. I talked to 30, 40 people that I saw this week, and really, I just didn't have anybody that supported it. That, as Mr. West said, we don't have a problem. The mayor has control and can take control of the meeting. I would say, as Mr. Bagby said, we have had some people take the podium and kind of gotten out of control. And but I just want everybody to think about the fact that we do already have control. We have a mayor that has control, and I'm not going to support any changes to the ordinance at this time.
Mr. West made a good point that we might table this. We don't have to do this tonight.
Okay.
I don't know that it would expedite anything, and we've got input now, and we can all look at it, and tabling it for 2 weeks might not be long enough. I don't know.
Okay.
But I mean, if it was an issue like getting a grant or something, we got to move on it tonight. We move on it. But with this, it's something that people have expressed concerns, and so I don't know if this is a time or place, but I would move that we table this.
Second.
It's already, there's a motion on the floor, guys. There's a motion and a second on the floor. You have to vote on first. We're only in discussion of it.
I'd also like to add that, on our city's webpage, every councilman's phone number is there, and we receive calls. I don't receive that many calls.
I received none on this one.
And,
I received several calls. I received several contacts. I've not had one person support this. They're very upset. They do not want anything to change with the citizens' input. If you'll look on my citizens' Facebook page where people can contact, you will see how furious people are with this. I do not support this issue, and I ask that everyone else vote no as well.
Mr. Matthews, if I like your idea, and I understand if this is voted down, it could be put back on the agenda for later discussion.
If it doesn't pass, you can always put it back on. Exactly. But you can't change it in the middle of a motion.
That's
Right. You're correct. I stand correct.
Sergeant of the Arms here, sorry.
I don't think it can come up for a period of time. If it's voted down, I don't think it can come back up for a period of time. And I may be wrong.
I don't know if there's any
Okay.
restriction on it.
I didn't think we could repeat it again
I'll check,
immediately.
but I can't think of one that comes to mind at any time limitation.
I made a motion to adopt, and someone made a motion to second.
Councilman Matthews.
You've made a motion to second.
Okay.
And now we're in discussion. So they're just ready for a roll call vote when they're done with discussion.
Now, as far as an amendment, would that have to come up at another time too, because it's been brought up since that motion and second, that 5 minute?
You could make a motion to amend, and the amendment would have to be voted on. Then if the amendment passed, then it would be to vote on it as amended. And if it failed, then you're back to the original motion.
I would make a motion for an amendment that it be, what is the current, I'm sorry, the current time now is 10 minutes?
10 minutes. which that time would be the same for a group, because it just says 10 minutes for speaking, for individual.
My amendment would be 10 minutes per individual, 30-minute maximum for a group, if we're going to have to make an amendment. I would like to make sure we give the public as much time as we could for public input.
But don't you think if they get it on the agenda, that you give more citizens a chance to talk? Like the Breathe Easy people came tonight and spoke, and nobody that was for or against it could join them unless they were in their group with the blue shirts. And then like Mr. West would not have been here tonight, because if Mr. Pumphrey had come and made his statements regarding this, Mr. West would have known to come. For if you get it as an agenda item, everybody knows.
I totally agree with your point on that, except that I know how hard it is to put an item on the agenda. If Mr. West or Mr. Halter or Ms. Brady, they came up, it's hard.
It takes 2 council members or just the mayor. If they contacted
That's
just the
correct.
mayor and the mayor wants to put it on, or they
It's
can go to the
burdensome,
council, or
though.
then they can go on to the city manager, city clerk.
But if it's not on the agenda, then they don't get their time to speak. And that's the point I'm trying to make. I only speak for my ward and the 30, 40 people I spoke to. I had no one that supported it, so, and I vote for my ward.
I think if we go and do all this stuff, it's a little too burdensome on the citizens, and I think they're going to have to go and try to put something on the agenda before. I don't mind if they come up here and tell us what their issue is. I don't mind if we have to stay late to listen to them. That doesn't bother me. That's what I ran for, to hear the people speak. It may be less efficient in some ways, but I don't think that matters in this case. The business meeting is the people's business. That's what we're here for. So that's why I see no problem leaving it the way it is and going with what the citizens want.
And it seems very unfair that the citizens' input is at the very beginning, and all the invited people who are sitting here with a presentation, followed the rules, made the arrangements to have it all, have to sit through all that same talk that we've already heard before. And it just doesn't seem fair to the other people that are following the agenda.
Well, I think along with that, if anyone wants to speak, they need to, and I think Springfield does this, that they let them know ahead of time what it's going to be. Well, that gives each of us time to look at that.
And be prepared.
We may be able to find information to ask the question, to answer the questions or what they're going to talk about. So there's more than one issue here as far as I'm concerned.
And just
To
like
me,
this, they hand us all of this and want us to vote on an ordinance that we've not even read yet. That is so unfair to me, to make that decision without having all that information. But they're coming up here in citizens' input, putting upon us a packet that we certainly don't have time to read while we're in the middle of our business session, and asking us to adopt an ordinance that we've not even run past our city attorney.
I don't know that they asked for us to adopt it. I think they just
Read
give
the
us
minutes, I'm sure she did.
information. And
that's why Aaron gave us this example,
It is a good example for us to give to the,
but not without us having time to read it and make that decision.
And
I don't
agree,
think they were
but-
asking for us to do it tonight, though. I don't mind getting a packet of information. It's just, to me, it's simpler. If they're going to bring it to us all at once, then get it all at once and look at it when you go home, and then put it on the agenda later.
Okay, we have, I believe Councilman Branham made a motion to amend it to 10 minutes per individual with a limit of 30 per group.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call, Ms. Kirby.
Councilman Matthews,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pearson,
No. This is for the bill, right? Not
No,
the
this is
motion.
the amendment.
Amendment.
Amendment? Oh, sorry. Yes. My
Councilwoman
apologies.
Abshir.
Yes.
Councilman Branham,
yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh,
No.
and Mayor DeGaris.
No.
It was 5-2 for the amendment.
Okay, so now we have a motion and a second to vote on the item with the amendment now of 10 minutes per person and 30-minute total per group. Is that correct?
Yes.
Which is broader than what we have on the books now.
Yes.
30-minute total per group or 30-minute total?
Per group.
Okay.
And that's broader than we have now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we have, I
We
believe
have-
now, the current ordinance is 10 minutes with a total of an hour.
Okay.
So it's less than what we have now?
Yes,
A
ma'am.
little bit.
Well, it depends on how if you say 30 minutes per group, if you have.
I know, that's
If you have
what-
more than 2 groups, it will
I
be more
know.
than an hour.
So citizens input is a maximum of an hour on the books now,
Yes,
with 10 minutes per person?
10 minutes per person with a maximum of 1 hour.
And the amendment that's been approved is 10 minutes per person, 30 minutes per group. And
Per group.
No limit
Yes.
on the time?
on the amount of groups,
Right. So you could be there 2 hours with just the citizen input,
yes.
with 4 groups?
Okay, so we've had that motion and second with the amendment. Roll call, Ms. Kirby?
Councilwoman Pearson,
No.
Councilwoman Abshir,
No.
Councilman Branham,
No.
Councilman Smith,
No.
Councilman Matthews,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh,
No.
and Mayor DeGaris.
No. Okay, bill number 7605 has failed,
As amended.
as amended.
So it's back to the original?
Yeah, back to the way it is now.
Yeah.
What? Okay, wait a minute.
Yes.
It's just dead issue.
Nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed?
Okay.
Well, in
Kind of
the
a
way it
additional way
is
to table
now,
it.
people have 5 minutes.
No, they have 10
Yeah,
minutes
they have
now.
10.
And we have an hour for citizens input.
Right.
It's like it's nothing's ever happened.
So we can table
Right.
the issue now, right?
That's the original.
No, it's already
It's
passed.
done.
It's back to where it was. So they
Yeah,
still
back
have,
to-
everybody has 10 minutes, just like they did when we opened.
Okay.
But if a person needs additional time, the way I understand the ordinance, they can ask the council. And
The mayor.
a council
Right.
member
Done it
has to
before.
approve it and have a second, and then the council would vote if they'd get additional time in addition to that. I believe that's.
I think that's right, yes.
Yeah,
I think you're right on that.
We've done it before.
Yes, I think that's correct.
On to bill number 7606, the city council will take action on an ordinance authorizing the police department to destroy antiquated records.
Move for first reading of 7606.
Second.
Motion second for first reading, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Duncan?
Bill number 7606, an ordinance authorizing the destruction and disposal of antiquated records and documents by the Poplar Bluff Police Department.
Move for second reading.
Second.
Motion second for second reading, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Duncan?
Bill number 7606, an ordinance authorizing the destruction and disposal of antiquated records and documents by the Poplar Bluff Police Department.
Move for adoption of bill number 7606.
Second.
Motion second's been made to adopt it. Any comments? Roll call, Ms. Kirby?
Councilwoman Abshir,
Yes.
Councilman Branham,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilman Matthews.
Yes.
Councilwoman Pearson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh,
Yes.
and Mayor DeGaris.
Yes.
7 yes votes.
Thank you. Bill number 7606 passes. Bill number 7607, the city council will take action on an ordinance approving a conditional use permit to operate a drive-through window for the sale of food and non-alcoholic beverages at 1205 North Westwood.
Move for first reading of 7607.
Second.
Second.
Motion second for first reading, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Duncan?
Bill number 7607, an ordinance granting a conditional use permit for the operation of a drive-through window for the sale of food and non-alcoholic beverages located at 1205 North Westwood Boulevard, Poplar Bluff, Missouri.
Move for second reading.
Second.
Motion second for second reading, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Duncan?
Bill number 7607, an ordinance granting a conditional use permit for the operation of a drive-through window for the sale of food and non-alcoholic beverages located at 1205 North Westwood Boulevard, Poplar Bluff, Missouri.
Move for adoption of bill number 7607.
Second.
Motion second for adoption. Any comments? Roll call, Ms. Kirby?
Councilman Branham,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilman Matthews,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pearson,
Yes.
Councilwoman Abshir,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh.
Yes.
And Mayor DeGaris.
Yes.
7 yes votes.
Thank you. Bill 7607 passes. Item double E, the City Council of the City of Poplar Bluff will meet in a closed meeting in which they will discuss such matters which are exempt under the Open Meetings Law, Section 610.021.1, .2, .3, .9, .11, .12, .13, and .14 of the revised statutes of Missouri.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we move to closed session after a short recess and city manager's report.
Second.
Motion second. Roll call, Ms. Kirby.
You are making me work. Councilwoman Pearson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Abshir?
Yes.
Councilman Branham?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Matthews?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh?
Yes.
And Mayor DeGaris?
Yes.
7 yes votes.
Thank you. Bagley?
I don't have anything tonight.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I have one comment.
Second.
Oh, just a second.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I yield to Mr. Matthews.
No, this is not, I guess it'd be under the city manager's report, but I want to thank you, Mr. Bagby, for sending us, the council members, the information about our function as council members in dealing with you and the other two people we supervise. I'd like to see that go to all city employees, because sometimes we don't communicate as well as we do. Then they'll have an understanding, and they will know that what our function is as far as they're concerned. And I think that's important that we do that, because if they don't know, then if they do know, they probably wouldn't say much to a council member anyway, but they should. And so I'd like to see that happen for us. And I know you send it to all of us, and you can send it to the employees.
I don't have a problem with that.
Probably wouldn't hurt to put it in the DAR.
Councilman Brown?
Just one short comment. I know Mr. West has done a lot with his property lately. Very proud. I was out by his property, but also wanted to, Mr. Bowling, who's in the audience tonight. If anybody's been on the east side, he's building on a vacant lot some new storage buildings, and it's just a big asset over there. Fills that empty lot and kind of helps east side out. That's all I have.
You have a motion and second.
Second.
No, I've already seconded. We're waiting for a vote.
Motion and second for the
Adjournment.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
She was ready to take roll call again.
Turned about 5 minutes.